So as it's nearly spring, I decided to go to the spring of the Thames. We're going to do it with wild camping. We're going to walk all 200 miles, hopefully. Literally half an hour ago, I was wearing shades and it was sunny. Welcome to the British weather. It's a hailstorm. So much for my lunch. You are very honoured. The river god is now in sunbathing mode. Is this against YouTube toss? I don't know. This is one of the points. Was like when I've got here, I feel like I've got quite way into it, so it feels like an achievement to get here. That's the end of the day hikes, and not the end of the noisy geese.
So if you want to follow me up the river, please hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, or share with your friends because it helps the channel.
So back here again, and it's sunny. Oh, it was sunny yesterday. They're quite cold. If you've seen the test hike series, you will have seen this walk kind of already. So I'm just going to do the highlights, the bits I didn't show, and we're going to see a river god, or two river gods maybe, and my favourite sculptures along the river. And as usual, I put my shades on and the sun goes into the clouds, almost guaranteed. And here is the first of the river gods. This is by John Bacon, and it's Father Thames as a river god. This is the version that's quite damaged. It's in code stone. Eleanor Code invented a way of creating very hard stoneware for statues that survived quite a long time. Unfortunately, the recipe was secret. I think only fairly recently worked out what it's made out of, and there's some thought that actually John Bacon helped her with this process. This is from 1781. He created several of these. I've drawn it and painted it many a time. In fact, you could, this bed is new, you could actually stand up there. I stood drawing it a long time ago. Unfortunately, that being there, it means it's difficult to actually go and see it, which I'm not totally happy about. Wikipedia, and this sign here says it was for Duke of Montagu for his gardens at Buccleuch House. Is it Buccleuch? How do you say that? I thought they made 7 of these, but they made several of these. They sold them for 100 guineas each, but not many of them survive. In this area we have 2. I'll show you the other one. It might be in its little clothes tent for winter still, I don't know, because that one is in very good condition when they preserve it. And this is the subway to the terrace gardens. It is sometimes open, sometimes it's completely flooded. Last time I was here, those test hikes, it was completely flooded here. Yeah, this used to be the public toilets, and they turned into a cafe like a lot of places. Unfortunately, the 2 public toilets remaining are both radar key. I have one because of my various chronic conditions. At the time I had kind of like imposter syndrome about having a radar key. Like, I'm not disabled. I really recommend if you have any conditions, or just generally, like especially wild camping, get them. A lot of places the only toilets that are available are disabled ones, and those ones are rather oversubscribed, and usually no one uses them. And that's the famous view. It's starring Agata veteran home. Goes back to, I think, Napoleonic times before, and Petersham Hotel. Again, I've drawn the Petersham Hotel and this view. Petersham Meadows. The speedster. It just speeds past you, you know. Sometimes ring, but they just zip past you. And they don't slow down, they're supposed to slow down. Yacht. And this quite often floods here. Whoa, wind. I think I'm going to put on my jacket. Literally half an hour ago, I was wearing shades and it was sunny. Welcome to the British weather. This is what I think people outside the UK don't understand about the weather here. This idea of ultralight. Oh, only take exactly the clothes for the conditions. In the UK, you have to take clothes for all conditions. And there, behind all those millions of boats, Tupperware, as my dad called them, is Marble Hill. Hamilton's Ferry, they seem to change the sign. I'm guessing that means they actually are still working. This is a rare thing, actual ferry that's operational. In a lot of the parts of the Thames, the passage ends, and there's a dead ferry where a ferry was, but not anymore. He's out of his winter clothes. And this is the more complete John Bacon River God. The River Thames River God. It's that bit that times it to 1779, the time of revolution. There's a Liberty cap on there, and a reference to someone who became the city chamberlain, a radical politician. So, yeah, I've drawn this many a time. This is beautiful. And remember, this is all kind of sort of cast. It's a bit like concrete. Well, it's a bit like clay, and then it's cast. And this is Ham House behind. On a very grumpy rainy day, but that is well worth visiting as well. I'm not going to go inside. I'll stay walking. I love how the alcoves all still have statues up. If you visit Orleans House, which we must have gone past, it was near Strawberry Hill, so I think we did go past it. All of those alcoves are empty. So, and this is National Trust, so I borrowed John's card to get in, which is a bit naughty. Arabella, Arabella. Yeah, only people of a certain age will get that reference. You are very honoured. The River God is now in sunbathing mode. The gardens are incredibly beautiful though. Is this against YouTube toss? I don't know. All this nakedness. Yeah, the River God sadly has a fig leaf. Oh, and the other thing about the River God, there's actually a third place that is a secret one at Somerset House. If you go into Somerset House in London, as you go in from the side that's the opposite, not the river side, the other side, have a look at the set of bronzes, and you'll see later on John Bacon did a version there in bronze. And there is quite a lot of art in there. Van Dyck's, I think there's called Van Dyck's. If you're into your old school masters, there's a few bits on there. One thing though, mentioned toilets there. It used to be the toilets and cafe were outside of the ticketing zone, so you paid to see the house and some of the gardens, but the rest was just open, and so you could just use the toilets whenever, and that was really useful when you're walking along the river. You could pop in here and have a pee and get some water or whatever, but now it's, unless you're a member, it's not really worth it. And you have to do a long schlep. Like I said, at the Richmond, there aren't that many public toilets around anymore, sadly. It's sunny again. That's British weather for you. Actually, that's Orleans House. I thought I'd passed it. I got on it sort of near Marble Hill. That's a really good gallery, actually. Even the emergency lifesaver is stranded. Hello, duck. Here it goes. You can see why there seems to be some paths there, but why I'm walking on this side. A lot of it's private gardens. Yeah, I do hope the bits I mentioned before near Kew were nice and green because they become like this. It's possible. It's hard to tell with rivers because you don't have tide gauges with rivers, unfortunately. So that's why camping rules okay. I said be careful with rivers, because you can't necessarily know if that lovely green spot by the river, if it starts raining upstream. It might not be raining where you are. You can't really know whether it's a start. Whereas with tidal things, you can go there at high tide and go, well, okay, tomorrow the tide's a little bit more, a little bit less, but as long as I'm a bit higher, it should be fine. I can see where the high water mark is. On a river, it's harder to judge. Even though there are several locks on the stream, we'll see one soon. You saw Richmond Lock, and we're coming up to Teddington Lock. Let's say, as much as I hate the Hawthorn, because I think that's Hawthorn, it does look beautiful this time of year. Just don't step on it with your shoes. There's lots of leaky paths through to hamlands like this. Some are wider, and obviously some of them can be boggy or even have flooding, but they're all possibilities for wild camping. In fact, I've seen people camping in these woods before now, further in, but not by here. But I've noticed that people are making little dens. It's probably still there. There's a teepee. Someone built a teepee, and used to go there and dance naked in the woods. My partner saw him once. See what I mean? They ring and never slow down. And actually, the rest of the time it's been mostly really nice. It's a hailstorm. So much for my lunch. Hailstorm. The lunch is destroyed. The wind's gone up and I'm just trying to rescue everything. Now, 5 minutes later, sunshine and slight rain. I'm officially done with this weather. We've had hail, rain. We're supposed to have thunderstorm, but we didn't have a thunderstorm, so maybe that was the hailstorm. We had lots of wind, and the problem is that, lunch was ruined. I don't mean lunch was, there was no possibility of a walk that day type ruin. I mean, as in actually, it was blown away and drenched. I've got incredibly wet sandwich. Things were blowing away over there. What is wrong with the British weather? Seriously, what is wrong with that? What's next? A hurricane? Tornado? I think we haven't had snow. I wouldn't put it past it. Okay. But yeah, you got spots like that. Should be good for a camp. Maybe not in a hailstorm. This is another waypoint on the whole thing. This is the Teddington boundary obelisk put here by the Thames Conservancy, which is the predecessor to the Port of London Authority. So this is the end of their jurisdiction, starting going out to the sea. It says 95 miles away. I don't think I've done 95 miles. I chose Yantlet as the place to start my walk. There is a point further out where their jurisdiction ends. It doesn't have a nice visual marker, I don't think. But it's like, yeah, when does a river become an estuary and become the sea? It's a bit of a philosophical argument, really. So I chose Yantlet. This is one of the waymarkers of the whole thing, I think. This is one of the points. Was like, when I've got here, I feel like I've got quite way into it, so it feels like an achievement to get here. Bye Port of London Authority. But yeah, about the rucksack, there is a slight problem with it. It's mostly been good. For 10 quid at Go Outdoors, I would recommend it, but it really keeps your back hot. I suppose the difference between this and proper day pack is it actually would have like my Osprey mesh and an air gap, so your back doesn't get all sweaty and hot, so you get really sweaty back. So yeah, this is Teddington Lock, and behind we have Teddington Footbridge, and over there in the middle you have an eel you can go and visit from the footbridge. I'm guessing magnet fishing has found these. As you saw earlier, there's quite a lot of stuff in the Thames. Quite a lot of junk in the Thames. That's why I have respect but also surprise whilst I'm in the Thames. I've seen them go in the water near where I live and swim around with all their clothes in a little bag that's kind of like got a light on it, or always like very bright, so it's like a buoy so people can see them. In respect, but I'm like, the amount of stuff, junk, shopping trolleys, safes, guns, nuclear weapons, that kind of stuff. Anything of that is in the Thames. I really wouldn't recommend. We're getting towards Kingston. Not Kingston, Jamaica. Not Kingston upon Hull. There are many Kingstons. I found other Kingstons. If you were here in the Middle Ages, it would be the Kingston, because the King's Stone was where at least 4 of the kings of England were knighted. King's Stone still exists, well, kind of, sort of. Victorians are meddling. King's Stone is still there. And the chapel nearby, which sadly mostly fell down dramatically in the 1700s, killing a lady. There's still a bit of that surviving, which is actually an evangelical church. So Kingston upon Thames is actually very important, 1,000 years ago. Less so much now. Unless you want a high-rise flat. Beautiful view though. Well, the sun's about to go, and I'm just heading into Kingston to Canbury Gardens. I'll show some of that. That's one of my favourite places to sit and draw and paint on the river. That's the end of the day hikes, and Not the end of the noisy geese. Whatever. Next, in the sort of phase 3, which is walking and wild camping again. And the next section is going to be things like Windsor. Oh, King, or formerly Queen, likes to divert everyone away from her property. We've got Staines. Chertsey, I seem to remember, was a bit of a pain. And then we've got Goring, onto Abingdon, then Oxford. I'm not looking forward to putting my pack on though. And all that weight at 10 kilograms, 9 kilograms. I've tried to reduce it down as much as possible, especially using the lighter tent, and it was just like, yeah, you just get wet in that tent. And this is Cambury Gardens, which I paint and draw many, many a time. They've even got a bandstand. There's the bandstand. I've done paintings and drawings of that as well. They do actually use it as a bandstand, which is unusual. And I love these big trees. It's a good place to sit and reflect. We do have a lot of good street art here. I have to say shout out to Sky High. Sky High does a lot of stuff around here. It's very good. We'll see some work in a minute. And we have a lot of art students. Kingston, I almost went to Kingston School of Art, so it was my second choice after Sheffield. That's one of Sky High's. Duck! Ducky. There's another one of Sky High's. There's like, near where I live is a fox on a pavilion which he did. And finally, Kingston Bridge. And this will be a better image of the bridge. Again, I've painted that. I mean, not literally painted it. I've drawn it and painted it before. Eadweard Muybridge was born here. And lots of hire boats, usually Turks, but there's a few companies that do it. But yeah, I wish they'd use Muybridge naked, that would be more interesting than a random woman walking away. But anyway, the local council spends more money on light up benches than leisure centres and stuff like this. Not really sure what chimpanzees have got to do with Kingston. Ooh-wee, cranes of Kingston. Yeah, unfortunately you get developments like this. The funny thing is, they designate this a wetland area, but right there is the fumes for their car park. You've got that right next to it. And their cars are underneath there. So those poor swans are breathing car fumes. At St Raphael's Church, again I've painted that quite often with the local Catholic church. Just not often do you see something in that sort of Italianate style. It's a very, very ornate church. On the other side there is Home Park and Hampton Court. This is basically the garden, the extended garden of Hampton Court, and Bushy Park on the other side of that road. To actually get into the park you have to kind of walk over the bridge and quite a way up that way past Ravens 8, and that's the other word, 8. Strictly around here, I suppose it's not EOT, it's 8 around here, AIT. So we can say 8 rather than EOT. And this is Queen's Promenade. The story is that the local developer who's developing this site tricked Queen Victoria into opening it by rerouting her down the Portsmouth Road. This is the Portsmouth Road, and then sort of ambushing her. Queen Victoria was not amused at all, and so there's been a lot of work trying to do it up because it got into quite a state. But there was things like fountains along here and water, lots of lost stuff, which is sadly gone. Lots of lost features. So the Friends of Queen's Promenade are doing a lot of this planting now, a lot of stuff you're seeing here, and they're doing a lot of really good work, and they like my artwork, so they've even reposted my artwork, so that's a wondrous thing. They're planting all kinds of things. It goes to show that community projects are good. Community projects can work, and they're a good bunch of people. Yeah, during lockdown I came and sat on these banks, there wasn't this stuff here then, and did paintings of people sitting on the benches and passing, and just as the river, because I didn't even want to sit on the benches, these many benches, because of COVID. And I was a high risk group. Well, so I'm a high risk group. Sunset over the 8. Wow, that's kind of sunset over the other side of the bank, over Home Park. This sorry state of affairs is the filter beds. This used to be a haven for wildlife, but Casina destroyed it. There were filter beds for the filtering of sewage and water, because there was a massive demand for clean water during times of cholera. And so one of the water companies started taking water from here, because it was cleaner than any other type of water. A lot of the land around here is ex-waterland. There was supposed to be a Sainsbury's on here, and that thankfully was got rid of. But this used to have like trees growing up. It was an amazing ecological, pocket, because it's wetlands, lots of birds and lots of different animals and stuff. And then, out of basically a fit of pique, the developer about 3-4 years ago started just spraying the site with biocide and wrecking it and turning it into a mess and not looking after it. A lot of the old infrastructure, like this wall and the pump house which is up there, which I'll film tomorrow, it's all listed. And I've painted this as it was. And even in the period since I started painting landscapes, 5 years, 6 years, it's just totally changed. It's become this denuded site. It's very sad, really sad what's happened here. 30 years of just trees growing, and it was just, you couldn't even see there was water there, because it was just kind of like wetland and trees and stuff like that. And under the guise of, it must be preserved, they ripped everything out, and the worst thing is they drained the filter beds. So, all of that life was all gone. This is called seething wells, because the seething wells were springs seething up, so that was one reason why it was chosen here for water for London. The locals are just very angry about it. The locals want their site to be a nature reserve, or a lot of them anyway. What they don't want it to be is the marina, residential or offices. I think everyone just wanted it to be like what it was, as a park for everyone to enjoy. But the developers want to make money off it, and it's really sad. A birdie. You'd prefer live ones, really?
That's the end of day 7, and I walked 5.6 miles, which isn't much for one of these series, but we'll be back to the wild camping in the next episode, and for much longer walking. In total, I walked 77.8 miles from the start. On screen now is the next part of the series when it's available. Please click on it to follow my journey, and I'll speak to you soon.